So we agreed to 8-minute constructives, 6-minute rebuttals, and how I forgot the time of the closing speech. Was it 2 minutes or 3 minutes?
Closing was, I think it was what, 3. Yep, 3. It was 3 minutes. I remember.
3 minutes.
Yep.
I ain't gonna try to act like I remember. I don't remember.
Not as good, bro.
And then you going first. And for all the people that's tuning in, whether you tuning in live right now or you tuning in hours later, the debate is: what's the #1 threat in the Black community? Is it the family breakdown or is it systemic racism? I'll be defending that the #1 threat in the Black community is systemic racism. Topher Town will be saying that the #1 threat in the Black community is the family breakdown. To make it where we have this as a civil debate, to make it where we not, you know what I'm saying? I feel like putting on I feel like this is a black man, I'm a black man, and what we not finna do is make a shit show for, you know what I'm saying, people to dissect and analyze to make it look like buffoons. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So because of that, because both of us are smart to know that, we have set speech times. You know, when he's speaking, I'm gonna shut up and write down what he's saying. When I'm talking, he's not gonna say nothing. I'm writing down what he's saying. We have a 3-minute cross-examination after that first speech. And after that, it's 3 more. You know what I'm saying? And Topher will be speaking first, and I'm ready whenever you are.
Yeah, I just want to say, guys, thank y'all for tuning in. And, me and George, we homies, man. You know, we keep it civil. Once again, I want y'all to remember that both of them are threats in the community. Like, don't get it wrong. We're not saying neither one is not a threat. We're just trying to prove which is a more pressing threat. So I want you to know that anything we're both saying is very vital. So don't just be like, oh, he's wrong. And understand that both issues within the Black community. And I just want to put that out there before we even get started with this. So once again, it's just an educational tool. So make sure you take notes for both of us. And hey, hopefully something comes from it. But all right. So I'm arguing for the fact that the breakdown is traditional family. So go ahead and you can go ahead and start whenever you're ready.
All right. I'll start whenever you start talking.
All right, cool. So the #1, so to me, the numbers in the United States has reached high levels in recent decades, as the extant literature suggests that single-parent households experience more physical and psychological problems compared to those raised in 2-parent households. Problems have been found to extend into adolescence and adulthood and include an increased risk of substance abuse, depression, suicide, poor school performance, and contact the system. And there are several adverse outcomes. I'm only going to.
Hey, Topher, I can't hold on. Hey, Topher, my internet is acting up. My internet is acting up. Like I literally did the first 30 seconds what you just said. I didn't get none of it. I'm outside in campus, and my internet is like I'm talking about. I finna go closer to the building and see that help me out of that.
All right, cool.
I ain't get to hear. I got to hear your arguments to be able to respond soon.
Yeah, man. I want you blindly going in.
Yeah, I don't want to miss nothing, man. I don't want to miss nothing. Let me see, man. I got to make it work. Whenever I start hearing it sound better. All right. Internet still ain't getting. All right, it's gotten a little better now. All right, man. I apologize for that. I'm started over, man.
All right. You good now?
Yeah, I'm good.
I bet. The number of single-parent households in the United States has reached high levels in the recent decades, as the extant literature suggests that children raised in single-parent households experience more physical and psychological problems compared to those raised in 2-parent households. These problems have been found to extend into adolescence and adulthood and included an increased risk of substance abuse, depression, suicide, poor school performance, and contact with the criminal justice system. As there are several adverse outcomes from such an environment, I'm only going to touch on a few. #1, perceived abandonment. Existing children who grew up without their fathers may come to resent paternal figures due to perceived abandonment. These feelings may erupt from a lack of trust and result in heightened sense of anger. The respect for authority becomes a byproduct of this. Attachment issues may evolve from such a mental state. #2, child abuse. Children who grow up in a single-parent home are twice as likely to be the subject of physical and or emotional abuse. In addition, the absence of a father results in an increased psychological burden on the child, as he or she must make sense of why his or her father is not present. This burden extends beyond the child to alternative caregivers such as the child's mother. Indeed, the needs of a child are hard to meet, even when a mother is very loving, committed, and caring. Number 3, legal trouble. Family structure and the lack of paternal involvement are predictive of juvenile delinquency. The more opportunities a child has to interact with his or her biological father, the less likely he or she is to commit a crime or have contact with the juvenile justice system. In a study of female inmates, more than half came from a father-absent home. Youths who had a father living with them have the highest, or never had a father living with them, have the highest incarceration rates, while youths in a father-only household displayed no difference in the rate of incarceration from that children coming from two-parent households, which points to that kids behave better just with the father around versus a mother. A high percentage of gang members come from a father-absent homes, possibly resulting from a need for a sense of belonging. Gaining the sense of belonging is an important element for all individuals. Through gangs, you find a sense of community and acceptance. In addition, the gang leader may fill the role of father, often leading members to model the behaviors after that individual. Having a father in a child's life greatly reduces the likelihood of a child joining the gang. The Journal of Research of Adolescence confirms that even after controlling for varying levels of household income, so get rid of the poverty debate, kids in father-absent homes are more likely to end up in jail. And kids who never had a father in the house are most likely to wind up behind bars. Larry Elder, a conservative talk show host, once interviewed Koisei Mfume, former president of the NAACP, and asked this question. As between the presence of white racism and absence of black fathers, which presents the bigger threat to the community? Without missing a beat, he said the absence of black fathers. The reason I'm bringing up people on the left side is because I don't want you to think it's a conservative argument. There's people on the left, on my camera, mess it up. There's people on the left that also have the argument as well. Also, Barack Obama stated during his Father's Day speech to Apostolic Church of God in 2008 that children who grow up without a father are 5 times more likely to live in poverty and commit crime, 9 times more likely to drop out of schools, and 20 times more likely to end up in prison. They are more likely to have behavioral problems or run away from home or become teenage parents themselves. And the foundations of our community are weakened because of it. Tupac has even been recorded saying, "I know for a fact that had I had a father, I had some discipline. I had more confidence. Your mother cannot calm you down the way a man can. Your mother can't reassure you the way a man can. You need a man to teach you how to be a man." Which leads me to my next big question I'm trying to answer today, or what we need to know is what happened to the fathers, right? You know, my George is going to try to say it's because of systemic racism. I'm going to say here it's because of the, I'm going to say the answer can be found in the basic law of economics. If you subsidize undesirable behavior, you will get more undesirable behavior. In 1949, the nation's poverty rate was 34%. By 1965, it was cut in half to 17%, all before LBJ's so-called war on poverty. But after that war began in 1965, the poverty began to flatline. From 1965 until now, the government has spent over $20 trillion to fight poverty. Nonetheless, the poverty rate has remained unchanged, but the relationship between poor men and women has changed dramatically. That's because of our generous welfare system allows women, in effect, to marry the government. And this makes it all too easy for men to abandon the traditional moral and financial responsibilities. Psychologists call such dependency learned helplessness. This trend is painfully reflected in the rate at which babies are born out of wedlock. Numbers have increased across the board, but blacks significantly hold the lead with approximately 72%. That's every 3 out of 4 black kids born to unmarried parents. To put this in perspective, even during slavery, when marriage for slaves was illegal, black children were more likely today to be raised by both their mother and father. Economist Walter Williams had written that, according to census data from 1890 to 1940, a black child was more likely to grow up with married parents than a white child. This phenomenon points to a major shift in the black community's values and morals rather than an external threat. Unfortunately, this trend begets disastrous symptoms. The Census Bureau reports that the percentage of cohabiting adults ages 25 to 34 have increased from 12% a decade ago to 15%, while the percentage of 25 to 34-year-olds who are married continues to decline. According to the Center for American Progress, which is a liberal think tank, slightly more than 25% of married couple households with children 25% of married couple households with children are low income, compared with about 46% of people in cohabiting couple households and 60% of those are single parent households. Another liberal organization, the Brookings Institution, reported married parents are more likely to stay together than cohabiting ones. In fact, 2/3 of cohabiting parents split up before their child reaches age 12, compared with 1/4 of married parents. For one thing, parents are more likely to stay the course if they embark on it together deliberately. Unintended parenthood is associated with a high risk of union dissolution. Further, they find that cohabiting unions are strongest, most likely to transition to marriage when the pregnancy was intended. So the steady decline of marriages within the Black community proves the unintentional nature of these pregnancies. So as a result of behavior, Black women in abortions is 3.5 times higher than white women. Matter of fact, Black women in the state are babies at a higher rate than they're being born. This is unprecedented given that majority of the Black community, including civil rights activists Fannie Lou Hamer and Whitney Young, denounced Roe v. Wade and seizure as a form of genocide. According to the CDC, in 2016, unmarried women accounted for 86% of all abortions. Among married women, 4% of 2016 pregnancies, excluding spontaneous miscarriages, ended in abortion. Among unmarried women, 28% ended. Women living with a partner to whom they are not married account for 25% of abortions, which is still 5 times that of married women. In 2016, 623,000 abortions were performed, and since Black women accounted for 38% of that, you are looking at 237,000 children murdered every year. Or this number is greater than the top 9 leading causes of death combined. Even when you consider the homicide rate among African Americans, 38% or 38 homicide deaths per 100,000 population among male African Americans, only 5 such deaths per 100,000 population for white males. Everyone from the left to the right agree that family stability is important for childhood outcomes. All is equal. Children raised in stable families are healthier, better educated, and more likely to avoid poverty than those who experience transitions into family structure. And I think that's about my time, right? Hey, George. It's all it's all good, man. I was just checking time, man. You're kind of spotty. You I said you're kind of spotty right now.
I'm in Oklahoma and it's cold. You feel me? And you know what I'm saying. So I gotta do it. Yeah. Check it on. All right, man. 3-minute cross checks. Starting time right now. Hey, you said something about the law of economics. You said that's the reason why we have the family breakdown.
Yeah, I say yeah, the way the economics have been played out.
The way the economics have been played out.
Yeah, I said we could find the breakdown of the family because of the war on poverty, which, like I said, would involve the economic play out.
So, what are you saying is the reason for the family breakdown in the Black community? Why is it unique in the Black community?
Because we're not marrying we're not marrying the mother of our children, and 2, even if we cohabit with that, the statistics I provided still show that we're 5 times more likely still to separate and still end up in poverty.
Okay. So I have some statistics on the Black fatherhood. It talks about also how that Black people are born out of wedlock, but it talks about how Black fathers are still more likely to be in the child's life even when born out of wedlock.
Absolutely.
So absolutely. So if that is the case, how is absent Black fathers unique to the Black community, where even the CDC says even though Black men are more likely to have kids out of wedlock, they're still more likely to be in their kids' lives. So how is it still absent Black fathers?
So the reason I know the survey you're talking about, right? The study. So one thing about this study, if you go read the end results of it, is going on about the fact that the study was voluntary. So it voluntarily asked 4,000 men, never gave the demographic makeup of it. Also, the question pertained to everyday things,
so,
right?
Okay. So the survey is bad. Okay, so you also made an argument that said that even during slavery, black men and black women, but black kids were more likely to be raised by their father and their mother. Are you standing by that statement?
Yes.
So during the institution of slavery, when a black woman had 12 kids and 6 of them got sold away, what source do you have to back up this claim that black children were more likely in the system of slavery to be born with their kid and their mother? Their mother and their father.
Well, my question would be to you: what statistic do you have to debunk that?
The literal makeup of how slavery was structured. Literally understanding that black people were seen as commodities. Therefore, they were seen as commodities. They were sold as commodities. So we know that black women were literally sat in plantations and they were birthed 12 to 15 children. The relationship that the mother had to the child, see, it's called prenatal alienation. You know what I'm saying? But last question, though. So when it comes to the absent black fathers and the law of economics, do you think that it is immune to racism?
We mean as far as the economic structure and what played out?
Yes.
Oh, no, I'm not saying it's immune. None of this is immune to racism. What I'm saying is, once again, the whole debate we're saying is which one's a bigger threat. So I'm saying our personal responsibility of not taking care of black women is a bigger threat and more of a cause, right?
Okay. Well, I'm going to start my time. It's my turn now. For y'all that don't know, how it goes is the first constructive speech, he gonna lay down this argument, I'm laying down my argument, and then rebuttals when we start having a lot more engagement of the arguments, you feel me? But, you know what I'm saying, I'm finna lay down my argument in terms of systemic racism. So I'm gonna hit the timer. All right, y'all know what time it is. Education is elevation, and today we're getting into systemic racism. See, some of y'all might ask yourself, what the hell is systemic racism? And is George just going to throw this word around without giving us some context or giving us a definition? Well, systemic racism, also known as institutional racism, is a form of racism that is expressed in the practice of social, political, institutional, you know what I'm saying, systems. You know, these disparities are in various disparities, but I agree with Topher. I'm going to keep it just in 3. Today, we're going to get into wealth, education, and into the housing system. But you know what? We ain't gonna keep it abstract. You know what I'm saying? Gonna keep it abstract. We're gonna jump into a historical context. Let's get into redlining. In the United States, redlining is a systemic denial of various services and residents of specific, often racially associated neighborhoods. And what did Topher say? The reason for the family breakdown is what? The law of economics. Well, guess what? The redlining is directly tied to selective raising prices and bank loans. See, stating simplistically, is discrimination that is sanctioned by the government based on race, regardless of family breakdown or marital status. See, further context would say redlining, this to keep it simple, you feel me? Redlining is depressed infrastructure, underfunded schools, housing, and segregation. So I know Topher already got his preempting of maybe the 3 strikes law or something like that, but I knew he was going to talk about economics. You know what I'm saying? So guess what, Topher? When you get to the rebuttal, I need you to respond specifically to the context of redlining. So for more historical context, let's get into the 1930s, because you got to know what I'm talking about when I talk about redlining. You know, the Great Depression, or when 1/5 of the country was unemployed, damn near everybody was dirt poor. See, then came FDR's New Deal. And Topher, just so you know, in systemic racism, we don't play the bipartisanship politic games, because the liberals and the conservatives are both implicated in the systemic racism. So what we know from the federal, for the FDR New Deal, is that many of us was taught in public schools that it revitalized the economy because it created what we know today as the middle class. However, it also cemented racial inequality for generations to come. Now, I know some of y'all gonna say, is George gonna stay in the past? Is he gonna come to now? Bring that ass here. We're gonna get to now. See, the FDR New Deal gave birth to two separate programs. The first was the enforcing housing segregation, and the other was the Federal Housing Administration. I mean, the first one was the Federal Housing Administration, and the other was the Public Works Administration. See, this matters because it created public housing. It created one for blacks and it created one for whites. Now, why does this matter? In Federal Housing Administration, it created low interest mortgage to build homes across the U.S. I'm already showing you why I'm already illustrating y'all in the first speech why I'm going to win this debate, because I'm literally taking the law of economics and showing y'all how it is structured by systemic racism. See, Federal Housing Agency built suburbs as we know it now. See, the FHA manual literally said, which means this is a government document, literally said it prohibited the occupancy of property except by race, for which they are intended, end quote. This is when we start getting into red line being more explained, you feel me, with more context. The government literally created color-coded maps, and they gave out housing loans, you feel me? The green section was the go, the red section was deemed risky. That was typically where the black folks stayed at. Now, ironic, huh? You know what I'm saying? See, even affluent black communities, Topher, like Sugar Hill and Harlem, were off limits to banks. See, in these affluent black communities, Topher, you feel me? They had high numbers of two-parent homes and marriage, but they still was off limits to banks. Because what you got to recognize is when we walking around, when it comes to systemic racism, it's predicated off of your skin color and not your family breakdown. Aside to financial barriers, there was little physical barriers that was placed in to keep black people from living with white people. For example, in the 1940s, Detroit had a 6-foot wall to prevent black people from living with white folks. And in 2020, Topher, today, it is still there. It is still there. See, supposedly, though, the Fair Housing Act put an end to redlining in 1968. But y'all know how that go. You can't stop the oppression with the pen, with the point of a pen. See, banks across the country, according to, hey, these are my sources come from right this for this fact right here. Banks across the country, according to USA Today, Washington Post, News Hour, and New York Times, just to name a few, were caught using red line maps as recent as 2015. These maps didn't care about the family breakdown. They were forced by race. Most redlining areas today are still a low-income black and brown today. And you know what? In these black and brown communities, these statistics of how the banks relate to your community, they don't give a damn about if you got 2 parents in your household. They don't give a damn if you got 1 parent in your household. You feel me? See, it's 3 impacts to redlining. It's wealth, education, and criminal justice. The first is wealth. See, home ownership is the primary driver for wealth in this country. You want to talk about economics? Let's talk about economics. See, we know that black people have the hardest in getting loans. See, but that's the claim. In the debate world, that's the claim. Now I'm finna give y'all a warning. Even when home ownership is an option, on average, black homes value 25% less in white communities, according to Brookings Institute. This is the case across the board, even when the homes and neighborhoods are similar. What this means is that when it comes to the economic structure and how black communities relate to the economics based off of systemic racism, specifically the Federal Housing Agency and things like that, we see that it has been sanctioned by the government that black people are disproportionately impacted regardless of who in your household. So regardless of your family makeup, we see this is. And when it comes to people living in redlining areas, they pay higher insurance rates, they have higher interest rates, they have higher mortgage rates. This means that I'm already showing y'all why Topher is going to lose this debate. See, the second thing is education. Remember, education is funded by property taxes. So when you live in a horrible neighborhood that's been redlined, if you have low property taxes, that also means your education school is going to be funded low. What this means is if you live in the hood where predominantly black folks be living at, this means you're going to have poor education. You know what I'm saying? But it's not just the education, because we see that with these vast disparities, even after the Housing Act in 1968, even in 2010, in places like Detroit, we see that redlining has had a great impact on who gets to learn what, when, where, how. You feel me? See, according to the NPR, black high school students are still twice as likely to be suspended from school. And Topher, when they get suspended, you see that the statistic, it didn't say only black kids born out of wedlock. You see, it didn't only say black bastard kids. It said black kids are twice as likely as whites. Not because of the family breakup, because they are black. Because what y'all know is the third one, you feel me, is criminal justice. You know what I'm saying? We know that criminal justice, we know that though, according to a Hamilton Project, white Americans and black Americans use drugs and sell drugs at similar rates. However, black people are 3 times more likely to be arrested for drug-related issues. So what we know is Topher's gonna get in here and pathologize the black community and talk about how we use too much drugs, but studies show that we use drugs at similar rates. And let me say this in my constructive speech. Knowledge of systemic racism does not deny self-responsibility, self-accountability. I'm ready to talk about self-accountability in relationship to systemic racism as soon as you are ready to.
Bet. Okay.
I'm up for cross 6.
All right, cool. So you mentioned redlining. So I just want to ask you clarify something for real quick when you talk about redlining as far as the socioeconomic. So what you're saying is, let me go back to what you were saying. So let's go back to the 1930s. We were talking about the redlining when it began and everything else. So of course it ended. We talked about it, but there's still stuff residue today, right? We're still talking about residue from the effects from it being even after it was banned, right? With the 1968.
Yeah. But what I showed you is that even after it was banned in 1968, now it wasn't residue. It was still being practiced as late as 2015. That is very, very, very specific. Very
okay.
Specific. Not residue.
So,
it's still being practiced.
Got you. So my next question is: so are you saying that that's still the number one way to build wealth today?
What? Home ownership?
Home ownership.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So if I tell you. So if I tell you there's a study that proves that home ownership is not the number one way to build wealth today, that actually renting is a more profitable and a more financial, is a better financial decision than home ownership.
My understanding of, well, first off, in this debate, even if you bring this study, it's not going to negate how systemic racism literally structures how the economic system operation works. But second thing I'm going to say is that when I think of home ownership as being the number one thing, regardless of how you are living, that's literally going to be how your wealth is set up, how you live, whether you're renting, whether you own, whether you got 10 homes, whether you live in a trailer park, whether you're homeless, it's literally going to be how your economics comes.
Well, you can't put both in the same category. You can't say home ownership is the same as renting, man. It's not how that works. You know what I'm saying? So we have to make that differentiation. So we're going to say home ownership.
You can spend all your time you want on this right here, but you making this distinction between home ownership and rent is not going to win you this debate. I'm still going to be able to prove to you that
it is because it boils down to your financial decisions, right? Because if you make better financial decisions with your money invested, spend it wiser, like you said in the study you pointed out.
Topher, that is non-responsive to what I told you about I quoted 6 different sources so banks are still using redlining
once again,
2015. This don't matter.
Once again, I'm not, regardless if they're using it or not, right? There's still black banks out there you can get it from. And what I'm saying is, I'm not saying it's not an issue. What I'm saying is you can avoid that issue if you would make smarter decisions, and given the fact that renting has become a better option, which most black folks are renting since we can't buy a home.
I think that the idea that black people are inherently irresponsible with funds, I believe, is a horrible argument. I even quoted to you black affluent communities that are still impacted by redlining. What this means is for them to be affluent, they making good decisions with their bread, bro. They educated, they went to school.
Let's get away from that then, because obviously I didn't want to waste all my time.
Because
no, I want to get away from it because I want to talk about the school thing. You talked about the school system, right?
Yep.
You talked about how redlining affected the school system.
No, we can take 15 more seconds. I'll answer your question.
Okay. So the whole thing about the redlining affecting school thing. So if school choice eliminates all of that, right?
School choice eliminates all that.
Yeah, so you're saying because based on where you live and the housing property determines what school you go to. So if you got a school choice, you can go to any school you want to. It doesn't affect any of that, right?
Nah, because that's not how the system works, bro. I don't know if you're living under a rock, but it's like 2 different black women. They got sentenced 5 years for lying on paperwork and saying their child lived in a district that had better schools. And when the system found out they didn't, they got sent to jail, fam. So this shows that even if you want to choose to live in a different system.
No, what I'm saying is because they didn't have school choice. What I'm saying is today there have been more programs. Matter of fact, Cleveland, Mississippi, I'm gonna bring it up, right? It just was desegregated, right, or forced integrated.
Let's starting right now. Let's starting right now. The rebuttal starting right now. Let's have this work, fam. That's how this works, bro. Fine,
we can go right there. That's fine.
6 minutes right now. I give you time to put thoughts together. I don't want to come out. I'm not trying to bully you, bro. I'm not trying to overtalk you. I'm not trying to have bravado. I'm trying to show you respect. We're having conversation.
Hey, bro, I get it. I'm not knocking any of that. All I'm saying is we can roll into it, man. We can roll into
the rebuttal then. 6 minutes on the clock, people. Shout out to everybody tuning in.
So you talked about the economic system, and that's why I was talking about the school vouchers. And so, we all talk about President Trump, right? I'm not trying to get into politics, but I'm just talking about policies, right? School vouchers is a thing that majority of the black people in inner cities have been talking about for years. And the reason why we're talking about this is because we want to be able to go to the schools of our choice. Matter of fact, before segregation started, I mean, black schools were excelling. And the reason why I want to bring up this example is if we go to the school that just was forced integrated back in Cleveland, Mississippi, if you look at the rate, math proficiency was higher in a school with predominantly black kids. Science proficiency was higher. Only thing, I mean, when it came to teacher ratio, student ratio was higher. So the only thing that was lower was the ACT scores, but everything else was great. Sports, everything all around, and even the kids were less likely to be disciplined. So what I'm saying is school choice is a great way to even eliminate any systemic racism you think that's taking place today. So that's why I want to bring that up. And another thing, I know we talked about things, but we didn't talk about you never talked about the rate at which people are being murdered, right? So, you know, criminal justice includes murder rate and everything else and people being locked up. So, but you never touched on that. So I just want to know, wait a minute, how does the rebuttal work? Can I ask you a question?
You can do your speech however you want to do it. If you want to ask me a question that I have to reply to, I'll
Okay.
reply to it. Like, it's your speech, bro.
Okay. So, so if babies are being murdered at a high rate, right? Black kids are being murdered at a high rate. Nine times the lead cause is scratch that. The rate of abortion is higher than the top 9 leading causes of death. So if that's a bigger threat to the community, or is police brutality the bigger threat to community, since that's part of the systemic racism we're talking about today?
Police brutality. I wouldn't say police brutality is the biggest threat in the community when it comes to systemic racism. I would say it's the lack of resources, opportunity, and access. And I believe that it's driven by systemic racism. You're not going to be able to pigeonhole me into a debate about the specularization of police brutality.
Oh, no.
Niggas only get killed once a week, but niggas deal with the lack of resources every day.
Right. So I'm just going to ask this question as we go forward, going as far as the rebuttal. So lack of resource and all that, right? So you're saying that even when all else is equal, black people are still committing crimes at a higher rate, right?
Nuh-uh. I read to you a stat that showed that black people and white people commit crimes at similar rates, not only sell and use drugs. But I can read more statistics to show that black people and white people commit crimes at similar rates.
Right. So you can read that, but at the same time, same thing with that. Over policing is a problem within the black community. Yes or no?
Over policing?
Over policing.
Yeah.
So it's a problem.
My bad.
You froze on me, buddy.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. I don't know what happened.
So I was saying, so over policing in any other area, the increased presence of cops leads to the crime rate going down.
Hey, I think that this logic right here you're getting into is a myth. I'm gonna use quick example. The difference between the crack epidemic and the ongoing epidemic, opioid crisis, it show you that the country has two different responses. When the crack epidemic happened, it happened in predominantly black communities. We see how high policing happened and how literally criminality happens. We see it in the opioid crisis. White folks is going to rehab. They're not being criminalized. So this idea that illegal drug use leads to higher police presence, which leads to more people going to jail, it's a false assumption. It's a myth. It literally drives systemic racism. Because it show you, listen, right now I'm in Norman, Oklahoma. All white folks. It's more drugs in Norman, Oklahoma than I can go get in the south side of Oklahoma City. You know where more police at? I'm going to let y'all use your imagination.
I don't know, man. Right now, we're not trying to use imagination, but hey, we try to use some facts. Only reason I'm bringing this up is because if there's over police in one area, but also under police in another one, then shouldn't the number of victims rise in response to that?
I think that what you're doing right now is correlation.
Now what I'm doing.
Correlation is not causation, guy. Correlation is not causation.
That's what I'm getting at. That's all I'm saying. The same thing. It can be said the same thing for systemic or over policing. What I'm saying is that proves, right? You said the correlation does not equal causation. So the same thing goes for over policing because of systemic racism. It does not equal causation of people committing crimes and people going to jail more often. That's what I'm trying to get at. It does not equate to that. So we can sit here and talk about that all we want, but it does not. Right? So for instance, right, let's take you for example, right? You grew up I think you talking about your parents were end up in jail. Tell me the story about your parents.
Yeah. Both of my parents faced incarceration a few times growing up, even when I was in college. Yeah, what's up?
So would you say you faced systemic racism growing up?
Yeah.
Okay.
Definitely.
So what did you do that made you overcome these difficulties?
I face systemic racism every day still.
Yeah, right. But you're not. But you're still a victor, right? You're still conquering and doing what you want, right?
Right.
So I'm asking is, what are you doing that the system is not holding you back?
I have the knowledge of myself, and because I have the knowledge of myself, I know that I don't care about how I appeal to certain people or how I appeal. It's all about what can I do and how can I be. I think I prevail for my community because I'm a man of principle and not a man of pressure. You feel me? I'm a proud, unapologetic black man that's for the political, social, and economic progression of black people. And I believe that, and me knowing who I am in this world, has allowed for me to navigate this world. Because I know that politically, socially, economically, black people are excluded, I know that I was literally able to navigate above those trials and tribulations and go through those barriers because I knew those barriers was there. You feel me? It's like if I'm a rabbit, I can teach my kids, hey, it's wolves right there. Because I tell my kids those is wolves, it's not saying you got to cry on your face because you're a rabbit and wolves eat rabbits. What they're saying is, if you know the rabbit, the wolf is 10 feet above you, when you get to 9 feet, you got to know how to navigate around that wolf. My knowledge of systemic racism has allowed for me to prevail, and it allows me to pay my bills too.
That's awesome, man. That's beautiful. So what you're telling me is you can overcome all of these regardless of what systemic processes are in play, right?
The rabbit is still prey to a wolf.
Regardless of what you just said. All I'm saying
Regardless,
is,
no, listen. Right now, I'm at the University of
put
Oklahoma.
it
I
like
got
this.
3 degrees, bro. The police will come up on me right now and say, hey, where your backpack at? If I respond differently, master's degree is not photoed on my forehead. I'm still a black man,
First
bro.
of all, regardless of what you're saying, right? We
I
just
made it
talked
out my
about
hood,
that.
though. I made it out my hood. I can get killed right here in the suburb right now.
So can a white guy get killed right there in the suburb, man? It happens all the time.
White? Because he's white? Let's talk about this. Let me get into my speech time. This gonna be easy work right here. This is gonna be easy work right here. I apologize for the bragging. I know that my speech time has started. This is to the people right here. I know that sometimes when y'all come across a passionate, confident black man, y'all tend to kind of characterize them as being a victim or being a victim mentality or being stuck in the past. But make no mistake, Conscious Lee, aka George Lee, whatever you want to call me today, I'm on y'all ass. See, when it comes to redlining shows you how the economic system is not immune to systemic racism. See, when it comes to economics, we know that it is not ironic that black people's labor, no matter what industry you're in, shows that you're going to be at the bottom. Take, for instance, we see that multiple studies have been, I've seen from the NPR, and shout out to Dr. Manning Marable, shows how even black married families with degrees are more likely to be in poverty than white families that have high school degrees. So what this show you is that even when you have money, you are not immune to the economic system. I'll give another, I'm gonna give 2 examples of 2 black people. The first one, everybody know Oprah, right? Everybody know Oprah. Everybody know Oprah is married too. Shout out to Stanley. She married, right? she got somebody, man. And she married. And she got braids, right? We're talking about economics. Her black skin does not overhold what's in her pockets. So when Oprah took her black ass to Europe, I think it was Switzerland, she went to an antique shop. She was racially profiled because they thought that she did not belong. Now they didn't care about what home that Oprah Winfrey came from. They didn't ask Oprah Winfrey, black woman, do you come from a married home? Because if you do, we ain't gonna racially profile you. They racially profile her. You know what I'm saying? So I ain't asking no questions right now. When it comes to Oprah Winfrey, a rich black woman that is married, and that's for argument's sake, let's say Oprah came from a married background. You see, when it came to the persistence of systemic racism, whether we're talking about the individuals or institutions, they didn't give a damn about whether she was married or not. Let's take a second example. Dr. Henry Louis Gates up at Harvard University. He's married. He comes from a fluent background. He also comes from a married background. For some reason, this black man had the police called on him in his home that he owns by his neighbors because they believed that he did not belong. It was dark. They didn't know it was him. And they literally called because he was black. See, Topher looking at it. See, to me, I believe Topher is in denial, right? And this right here is for my conservative people that's watching right now. You cannot deny the nature of systemic racism on one breath and then turn around and say, oh my God, Trump is doing so much great things with the First Step Act and trying to remedy how systemic racism operates. See, this is what I know about how y'all do. On one instance, y'all say racism is a joke. And then on the other instance, Topher started off this debate by saying, I'm not trying to say systemic racism is not an issue. He's not trying to say that the family breakdown is not an issue. But on one limit, he'll be able to say racism is a joke. Those insurgents are over there beating their chests talking about racism. Let's talk about how redlining also impacts the criminal justice system, because what we know is that based off of historically the 1930s, your community was kind of, red line. It was part red. We see even today in 2020 that the impacts of redlining and how redlining is enforced still impacts communities today. Shout out to everybody in Baltimore, Maryland, whether you out east or you out west. See, what we know is the areas that were historically in red line districts, they still have the highest bail rates. They still talking about money, right? Money. So you need money to get out of jail. You know what I'm saying? And what we know about high bail rates is them folks is not looking up the household the household you come from when they give you your bail. You feel me? Hey, check this out. A few weeks ago, I had a debate with a gentleman by the name of LMS Tactical. I'm a married black man. Topher's a married black man. That's why this debate is funny. You feel me a little bit? But me being a married black man and being a father and being present in my two kids' homes, that did not stop LMS Tactical from telling me he was going to beat my ass and stop and frisk me. And I'm not speaking in hyperbole. You're able to go to my Instagram page and see where he said this to me. And what I'm telling you is, listen, deadbeat dads come in all shapes, forms, and sizes. You feel me? So when it comes to the uniqueness of black men not being in the black community, you have to be able to look at the prison industrial complex and how black people are more suspected, therefore we're more detected, therefore we're more punished. Hey, check this out, Topher. Did my daddy sell them drugs to go to jail? Hell yes. Did he do the crime? He do the time? Hell yes. Topher, this means that the knowledge of systemic racism does not mean that it denies responsibility. See, Malcolm X said some shit like, the white man has done you wrong, but it is your responsibility to do something about it. See, the reason how I'm able to pay my bills, the reason how I'm able to take care of my kids and go to my communities and communities like mine all across the country, is not because I teach kids to say, you're black, you're oppressed, so you should sit in the house and cry about being black and oppressed. It teaches them to be able to navigate the system and world as understanding that the world is racist. What you gonna do about it? You feel me? I work at a predominantly white institution. In this predominantly white institution, they base off who comes in the community and who comes into school and who does not come into school based off of race. We got our 2-minute closing statements. And it was on, and then the debate on. We'll let y'all decide who won. Happy birthday, Topher.
Hey, appreciate it, man. Hey, so I just want to close this up real quick, man. I know you talked about how LMS Tactical call you whatever. I mean, it's called noise talking, man. Both of y'all was talking shit. I mean, everyone's seen it, man. It is what it is. Now we're talking. Oh my gosh! All I'm saying is it was noise talking. That's it, bro. He obviously he was not going to commit something like that, man. Come on now. Anyway, when we go into the debate, you're talking about the Oprah Winfrey and Harry Gay situation, man. That could be chalked up to just you don't know what the crime rate was. So if a store has a history of black people coming in and stealing or something going on, it's not racist to believe that some lady walks in, you don't know who she is, and she happens to be the typical demographic of someone that happens to come in and do certain things. That's not racism. That's just being smart and having conversation. So that can be chalked up to all of it. All I'm going to say is this, we got off the topic of which one is a bigger threat to the community and all, right? So you talked about systemic racism, and once again, racism is a joke, meaning that it's not a bigger threat to the systems and things that are happening in the breakdown of the country. All I'm going to say is this, man. if we're gonna have this, going forward, when people talk about these type of things, you already proved that you can navigate the system and do what you want to do. So it's not a big threat. If I can go around this threat, it's not a big threat to me. You know what I'm saying? It's not a big threat. A threat to me is someone holding a gun to my head and I can't do nothing about it. To me, that's the number one threat. And the smoking gun we have right now, the biggest threat we have in the community is actually the absence, the breakdown of the family, right? Because that's been proven across all borders that it's a big issue when it comes to racism. I mean, not racism, but when it comes to economic power, when it comes to the criminal justice system, education, all around, right? So this is what I'm talking about. We're talking about something that's like this versus something that's a pat on the shoulder I can go. And once again, we both proven that, right? I'm from Mississippi, the highest poverty rate, highest incarceration rate, everything for Black Americans, and I still come out on top. Not because of racism, and not because they helped me out anything. It's because I navigated, I knew what decisions to make and everything else, man.
Y'all ready for this, man? Excuse my lips, that little chap is cold outside, you feel me? But hey, peep game, man. Topher Town's logic in this debate is literally, because I have never experienced police brutality, this must mean police brutality doesn't exist. Because I was successful in being able to navigate the system, my individual success must prove that the collective struggle does not exist. To me, this debate comes down between the individual versus the collective. To me, y'all know it would be foolish for a Black person to be like, well, because I come from a two-married home, because I come from a home that looked like the Huxtables, this must mean that the single Black homes don't exist. Because, hey, I'm Black, my family is the Huxtables. We know that logic will not get you anywhere, right? When it comes to the individual versus the collective, we got to understand that systemic racism is not just because you didn't individually go through an experience, does not mean that it doesn't happen. It doesn't exist. You feel me? To the Black conservative, I got a minute left, right? When it comes to you feel me, trying to get up your conservative clout, you should tread lightly for how you pathologize Black people for being inherently lifeless and inherently criminal. The idea that Black folks always already criminal or always already don't give a damn about life is funny. Y'all love to talk shit about Black on Black crime, but when these white folks are shooting up each other in movie theaters and shooting up each other in schools, we don't hear nothing about y'all talking about white on white crime. How come y'all don't have that same energy? Y'all come at Black folks in our community about Black on Black crime? Why y'all don't go with y'all white boys about white on white crime when those lone wolves pull up guns and start shooting up folks? You feel me? Y'all want to talk about gang violence, but when Donald Trump has inflated 8 different manifestos that brought 8 different public shootings, we ain't hear shit about white folks having guns and things. This is how I know people are invested in pathologizing Black people for being inherently violent and inherently lifeless. When you watch this debate, you know I won. And it's not about the win, it's about what you learn from this debate. Education is elevation. Shout out to y'all.
All right, man. Hey, thank you for the debate, bro. Next time we gotta have a better connection, man, and probably get on the phone and come together next time, man.
Next time I make sure that happen. I take responsibility for that, real talk. I take responsibility for this, what you call. I was in a hurry. I thought I was gonna be debating you at my house. My wife was like, nah, nigga, we need to move around. And we don't want to, you know what I'm saying? So I caught myself coming to the office, and then I left my office key because she drove my car, I drove hers. So I'm literally outside. I was on the basement in my office. So my internet was shoddy. You know what I'm saying? I tried to debate you in the car. I got in the car every time. So hopefully the audio quality of the video is nice.
Yeah, hopefully. That's what I'm hoping for too, man. But next time we can try to plan it up to where we can do this, but at the same time record it via Zoom or something like that, so we have some good quality for the video.
Oh yeah,
I think that'd be pretty cool, man.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, man. Thank you for it, man.
Hey, this for the source. I want to read on this. The law of economics is what you saying the family breakdown come down to?
Not so it could be found within the economic, the pattern, the structure of the economic. Okay. What I'm saying, that's what.
For shizzle. Hey, y'all, this debate will be up all day.
Yeah. All right, man.
Yeah, hey, this debate will be up all day. This debate, what I'm gonna do is, Topher, I'm gonna download it. Do you have a YouTube as well?
Yeah.
I'm gonna download
just
it and put it on my
put it up on your YouTube. Yeah, I get it from there.
Okay, for sure. All right, man.
All right,
man. Appreciate y'all for tuning in, man. I know y'all could have been doing anything on this Saturday morning, so we appreciate y'all even tuning in and just coming in to see two black men debate about what's going on in the black community. I think regardless of whether you agree with me or you disagree with me or you agree with Topher or you disagree with Topher, I do believe that it's productive and constructive for black people to have engaging, meaningful conversations about what's going on in our community and how we can make things in our community better. You know what I'm saying? And I really do mean that. I don't give a damn what your political affiliation is. You know what I'm saying? And it's especially the black people. I believe no matter what I don't care if you're liberal, if you're conservative, if you're independent, if you're Muslim, if you're Christian, I just think that this is good for us to be able to, you know, have these type of conversations.
Right, man. And I'm glad me and George I know we kind of one of the bigger, I guess, political figures on TikTok, man. So I think them seeing this type of conversation, this type of debate happen is good and healthy. I always want to remind people that you don't have to be violent towards people because they have opposing views or not. I know there was a little spat going on TikTok for a little bit, but like, guys, it's, you know, there's no right or wrong.
No insults were thrown in this debate. Record show.
None.
Record show.
So yeah, man. So that's all we're saying, man, is you guys just learn from it, take from it, and grow with it. Like, take it and share with other people. Like I said, it's information for both sides is very vital. So don't think that nothing we said was
sources. We both had sources from institutes, from news articles, from different studies. You know what I'm saying? We had different. We both had information. So we let the people decide what they thought was. And I think the dope thing I think about this is people can debate and have other conversations based off of this about who they thought won and why they thought, you know what I'm saying, won. Because I feel like, to be honest with you, I don't think the win is not that important at the end of the day. That's why I teach my debaters. You feel me? My debate career is over with. I can't pay my debate bill. I can't pay my bills with debate trophies. I can't feed my kids with them. You know what I'm saying? It's only about what I learned. When I go to different companies and different schools, they don't give a damn about my win record. They care about what I learned from doing debate. You feel me? That's what I think is important from debating, what you learn.
Yes, sir. Well, y'all heard it, guys. Thank y'all for tuning in for my birthday, and thank y'all for giving me this Saturday, man. And yeah, looking forward to it. Like I said, watch it, share it. We don't care about the results for the most part. We let y'all decide, and hey, just learn from it. That's all we want to take from it.
Yeah. Of course, he think he won, and I thought I won. It's debate.
Of course.
Yeah, of course. Debate, all right, man. Shout out to you, dog.